Hello, my name's Connor McReynolds, and this is the Jericho Comedy Podcast. Not everybody's feeling super comfortable going out to live comedy at the moment, but that shouldn't mean that you don't get to hear from some of our wonderfully funny regular performers. So we are bringing the funny right into your ears. That's a weird way to say that, isn't it? Anyway, this week I've been chatting to a terrific comedian, writer, director, and actor, Tara Newton-Wordsworth. Tara is absolutely fantastic. Just before lockdown, she performed her solo show Motherhood at the Soho Theatre in London and was working on her new comedy Our Mummy Issues, all about maternal mental health before COVID came along. We'll also be playing you a message from our brilliant friends at Oxfordshire Mind, and later you're going to be hearing a clip recorded live at Jericho Comedy. But right now, here is the woman herself. This is Tara Newton-Wordsworth. Tara Newton-Wordsworth, hello, and thank you so much for joining me on the Jericho Comedy Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Connor. It's such a pleasure to be here.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I've been really looking forward to chatting to you. Obviously, we were gigging together earlier in the week for a lovely gig at an Oxford college, which is something that we do a bit. But it's obviously been a while since we gigged together before then.
Well, we did that boat gig.
Oh God, of course, yes. We did the Punch show as well. I lose track. It's kind of gross that I've gigged more since lockdown, I think, than I ever did before. I don't know how or why that's happening. But yeah, what about you? I mean, how has lockdown comedy been treating you?
I've been doing a few bits and pieces since restrictions have lifted a bit. Obviously, I've done quite a few for Jericho, which has been awesome. I did the drive-in gig, which was really fun, slightly unnerving, I guess, performing to cars and not really knowing like whether you're doing well or not.
Yeah.
But that was fun. And I've had a few other little gigs around the place in Swindon and Reading, and it's been nice. It's been really nice to sort of get back out there. I do miss a good old-fashioned, small, damp basement gig where you're very much not socially distancing and everyone is like on top of each other's laps. But,
yes.
It's also, I'm grateful for what we've had. I feel that we're about to probably have a second lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's that thing of like, I think it's been nice to kind of make the most of it while we can.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, of all the kind of sort of new world of comedy, like you mentioned the drive-in there, and I really wanted to ask you about that because it wasn't just a case of like performing just your material to the cars, because you were also hosting one of our stages there, and like emceeing to cars is a different thing again because crowd work to a vehicle is quite challenging.
Yeah, thankfully there were some people sitting outside of their cars, so I kind of directed it quite a bit at them, which was nice. All fairly kind of nice people, fairly nice,
Fairly
kind.
nice. I like
But
that qualifier.
yeah, I mean, it was just, I don't know. I found it very different. I think, I found it just harder to sort of gauge. But, people were so nice afterwards about it. So I think people were enjoying it, but it was just that thing where you can't necessarily, hear them laughing from inside
Yeah,
their cars.
absolutely. Yeah. And what about like, have you done much of the kind of online stuff, like any online gigs
I
or?
did do an online gig earlier on, which was okay. It was one of those ones though where I think because it was on Zoom and when I did a joke, if they did laugh, then it cut off me doing the setup for the next punchline because they
Oh
were laughing
yeah.
and then that cut off my audio. So I just think and it kind of freaked me out a bit because I felt Well, it was such an unusual medium. And I think I got so anxious that I didn't do it again. Whereas I think if I just plowed on, as some people have, where they've just really got on top of this online gigging thing,
Yeah.
then I probably would have felt more relaxed about it. Weirdly, I would say probably the most anxious I felt about doing a gig for that online gig than I felt for a really long time. So,
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, it was weird. It was like I was just alone in my room, like freaking out before going on to this Zoom
That's
call, this
interesting.
Zoom gig. Yeah. But then also I think I was so anxious already because of lockdown. So I think
Yeah, that certainly doesn't help anything.
yeah, but I think if we do go back into a second lockdown, I'll definitely be more up for the online stuff now, I think. I think I'm feeling more comfortable with it all now.
Yeah, I think that's the very, very, very slim positive we can find with like a second lockdown is that in theory, comedy sort of everything to do with comedy kind of ironed out the kinks during the first lockdown.
Mm.
Like we've all learned how to host online stuff properly, and in theory, some of us have learned lessons about like performing online or performing at drive-ins if they remain a thing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the slim positive. Like we may never see our families again, but at least we know what an online gig goes like.
Hey, did you do a lot of online gigs?
I didn't do any. It was very silly. I sort of decided just after gigs came back, and we were all allowed outside again, and obviously everyone left their computers and went into the real world. And when that happened, I was like, you know what? I'd quite like to do an online gig. And so they were surprisingly difficult to come by, considering everyone was outside. So yes, if second lockdown comes, I'm going to be braver this time round and do some online stuff. If anyone will have me, of course.
Oh,
Uh,
that's of course so many people would have you. I mean, you're
oh, you
adorable and
charmer. You
very funny.
charmer.
So,
Tara, I would love to talk to you about, because obviously we all had plans for this year, and obviously they have sort of been put on pause at the very least. You had plans for a show for kind of Brighton and Edinburgh this year. You were going to do mummy issues, is that right?
yes, I was. I had literally almost forgotten about that. It's like, what? What show?
I read a little bit on your profile on your agent's website and sort of reading that it was about maternal mental health,
Oh
which
yeah.
is a fast.
I've literally forgotten about it. Like I honestly have just like I
That's so
once they said
funny.
Edinburgh was cancelled, I was just like, okay, and just have not thought about it since.
Well, last
Yeah.
year's show, even taking mummy issues aside, obviously last year's show, Motherhood, was a very personal show, all about uh, being a mum, as the name would suggest. And obviously, you have two very little, adorable young children,
Hmm.
and that is 99.9%, I'm sure, of your headspace is being a mum in lockdown at the minute. So in terms of like writing comedy and stuff, is that very much where you're at the moment, writing about your experiences of motherhood and as mummy issues is going to be kind of maternal mental health?
Do you know what's funny? I think I don't feel that I'm writing so much about motherhood anymore. I feel like I'm probably looking a bit more at well, not bigger. It's all important, but just things maybe that are I've become quite interested in oh God, I'm not really sure how to talk about this. But I've become quite interested in sort of religion and also extremism and the effects of it on like particularly if when it's used to control you,
Mm-hmm.
the negative effects that it can have on people. I know that there's obviously lots of positive effects and that lots of people find it very comforting. I myself have many times in my life, but I think just delving deeper into childhood trauma. I think I've definitely been, just having a bit more of a look at that. So I've been writing a little bit about that during lockdown. I'm not sure if I'm ready to kind of do a huge amount of that material yet. It's one of those funny things where you're sort of writing something and you're like, I don't know if I'll ever talk about this, but it's almost
Yeah.
therapeutic writing it. So I think I'm gonna hopefully at some stage I just miss open mics so much. Like, I really miss the space to just be shit. I don't know if we're allowed. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, well, yeah, I think it was just that feeling of like, I think because all the gigs that you're doing now are like paid gigs or professional gigs, and you don't feel that you can get up there and just sort of talk, just do a bunch of new material that could be really bad. So I really miss that safe space of just being able to get up and do 5 minutes that could be absolutely rubbish, or you could find that like bit of gold in there. So yeah, and I've been writing a little bit about motherhood. I mean, lockdown with 2 toddlers, it was, I don't know, it was very intense at times. And then there were other moments where it was literally like absolute bliss because I just spent the days picnicking with my children on the common, and not having to think about anything else. Like, for that first time, the massive pressure that's always in the back of my head being like, you should be achieving something with your life was gone, because it's like, well, I can't achieve anything because everything is cancelled. So I'm free, like I'm free to just enjoy my life. And it was in another way, I mean, that sounds horrible saying that when I know it was just horrific for a lot of people. But in that time where we literally, when we couldn't do anything, like when we just had to like be in our house all day or go for your like hours walk or whatever, it kind of forced you to sort of be present or something. Yeah, I don't know. It was like enforced mindfulness.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. And and also like that thing where it's really interesting to hear different people kind of saying I shouldn't complain about this and all the rest of it. Because other people have had it so much worse. And yes, like other people have had horrible experiences in lockdown, but like everything's relative. And just because I think about this a lot anyway, like I've found lockdown really challenging. Like a lot of work has just kind of gone. I missed out on a job that I really wanted.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like a lot of that stuff felt so bad, but it doesn't make you feel better to think maybe people 3 doors up have lost a relative to COVID, and so I shouldn't feel upset. Like, I kind of think like those days where you're sort of stressing about like achieving stuff or not achieving stuff, or even feeling guilty if you're not feeling bad. Like I think everybody needs to learn to like give ourselves a break. I think that's just a general thing that, I think about that a lot. Like I sometimes worry that I'm indulging in a bit of misery too much, and then I think, oh no, it's because I'm miserable. So I'm gonna just let myself feel that way and not beat myself up for feeling an emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important as well, because it's been difficult for everyone in different ways. I mean, like just staying home all the time, and
Yeah.
even that the challenge, like just thinking about going back to when the first time having to go to the supermarket, or the fact that we couldn't get toilet paper for like the first few weeks, and
Yeah.
really got to that point where we're like, oh my god, we're gonna have to start like washing, and like, because in
Yeah.
it was just, and you sort of saw the best and worst parts of humanity, where you're just like, how can it be that there are people going in fact, yeah, I don't know, I feel like I had some very dark thought, and it's brought me mild joy thinking about the people who hoarded toilet paper, that the fact that they have to just live now with like mountains of toilet paper in their house, and
That's their punishment.
exactly. um So that makes me feel slightly better when I feel angry angry
I
about
like
that.
that. Yeah. I mean, Tara, like, to go back to sort of what you were talking about earlier with the kind of things that you're drawn to writing about at the moment and that you have been thinking about during lockdown. I'm really interested because when I watch you perform, I just love seeing you perform. The choices of topics that you do talk about on stage and the way you talk about it, it's kind of equal parts super honest and always super super funny.
Oh,
Um,
thank you, Connor. That's so
but
that's sweet of you.
oh no,
Oh my god.
honestly, it's as Jericho audiences who have seen you will know. But the personal stuff, like mummy issues, very personal show. What you're talking about with kind of some elements of trauma or experiences with religion, like which is obviously quite a personal thing for you as well. Like it's such a fine balance, isn't it, to find like writing about something in the right amount of writing about it and the right time for you personally to talk about
Mm,
these things. You
mm.
touched on like maybe I'll never talk about it, but it's good to write it down. So like not doing it too soon, talking about it the right amount, trying to find the funny in it in a way that is like okay for you to laugh at and like that you feel healthy and stuff. It just sounds like a real balancing act. Like, was that the challenge with mummy issues when you were talking about parenthood in a very candid way? And is that what you're kind of keeping that plate spinning with the new stuff that you're looking to write too?
Yeah, I mean, with mummy issues that I was going to take this year to Edinburgh, to be honest, it was still very early days with the writing. So I almost felt a sense of relief in some ways of not having to do it because I felt that it was one of those another rush job in a way.
Okay.
But I don't know, it's that sort of weird. I think for me, I'm at a place now where I feel with comedy, if I'm not talking honestly about my experiences in a way that means something, I kind of just don't see the point anymore. Like I don't really
Hmm.
care enough. Like it's nice. I think it is obviously it's a great joy to make people laugh and I love that feeling. Like there's no better feeling than when the audience just is 100% with you and you feel that you're in this together. It's such a beautiful
Yeah.
feeling, but at the same time, anyone can kind of make jokes, like as in a joke that is just a joke that anyone can say isn't really interesting to me. Like what really excites
Hmm.
me is when I hear comedians getting up and sharing something that is absolutely from their life and from their soul and from their like who they are, but it also resonates with you because you go like, oh my god, that is me, and often that's you don't I don't know, I think that's
Mm,
what really
hmm.
great comedy is. I definitely am not saying I'm there because I don't feel that I am. I feel that I would like to be brave enough to be a lot more honest, but at this stage, I think I'm not there yet. I'm sort of I want to get there, but I
That's
think it's a
really interesting
process.
because it seems so honest to me watching it. So I'm really surprised to hear that you feel you're not kind of at your most honest yet. I'm kind of fascinated to think how much more honest can a person be on stage. Uh,
It's like, oh God, what does she really think? Um,
but it's incredible. I mean, to even get to the point where you are now. I mean, you're talking about seeing yourself going from kind of where you are now to a point where you're maybe talking more honestly, and you feel like you're achieving that more. But from where you started out at when you first started comedy, when you first started writing comedy, that's surely quite a journey you've gone from whatever topics you were first talking about to the point where you're very honest and open on stage now. I mean, what kind of things were you talking about when you started out?
when I first tried comedy, it was a long time ago, and I only tried it like sort of a handful of times, and then I just was sort of overcome with I don't know, I just got very anxious and depressed about it. It
Mm.
was one of those things where it went really well initially, and the second I had a bad gig, I just didn't have the kind of bounce back to keep going, and then I didn't do it again for
Yeah.
years. But in those early days, I was in New York. I was at drama school, and I was kind of doing this sort of thing of being like, I'm from Australia, like, and kind of being like, I'm from Australia and this is my impression. And when I came to New York, I was expecting you guys to be like, hey, I'm walking here. What are you talking about? I'm drinking, like, and I was kind of talking about my impressions of Americans, and but then again, that's all kind of quite surface stuff. Like, it's that
Mm.
idea of like, I'm from Australia. I don't ever even really talk about being from Australia now, like, as in, I'll mention where I grew up or whatever, but it's not like I don't come out and my shtick isn't like, I'm Australian, and like, not that there's anything, if that's your thing, like, great. I mean, I think sometimes it's absolutely hilarious when people really lean into that kind of like where they're
Sure.
from.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's just, I just feel I kind of just want to keep going deeper into. I think it's also my own, like, I feel such a huge part of my upbringing was that I really don't feel any sense of identity. Like, as in, I was not really allowed to be myself. I wasn't allowed to have my own opinions or thoughts, and because of that, um, I feel I'm very much kind of discovering myself now, and in some ways, I'm also discovering what means something to me, and therefore, like, that's kind of going into the writing of like talking more about what do I even think about things, like forming an
Mm.
opinion, because I sort of, wasn't allowed to have one. Like, most of my decisions for the majority of my life were made for me through prayer by my parents, and it's that thing where, like, if you don't even make a decision for yourself, like, you don't know who you are, so it's really
Mm.
it's been an interesting journey. Like, even recently, I feel I still have a lot of anxiety around decision making, and now I'm just starting to feel more of a sense of like, no, I like this, I'm going to wear that. Or like,
Yeah.
weirdly, and this sounds ridiculous, but since starting therapy, I've got much more into fashion. So
Oh
ironically, I
yeah.
think therapy has made me more superficial. No, not really. Um, but it was that thing of like, I didn't even feel confidence to know like what I liked to wear. And now I'm just, I feel like I'm going on some massive tangent here that is just like,
No, it's so interesting, and like even and it totally relates to the question because I'm really interested to know, like, from where you started out writing and performing to where you are now and where you want to get to. It seems like such an interesting path, and I'm so interested, and it's something that I think about so much as well. Like, it's a quality of your comedy that I love so much, the honesty, and that it feels like you're really talking about things that are important to you, but not just talking about them, like, writing incredibly well structured and performing brilliant stand up on those things. And it's amazing. I mean, what was the turning point for you going from that kind of I'm Australian and Americans are like this to kind of where you are now? Like, was there an experience? Was there an act you saw? Any kind of influences that made you think, "Oh shit, like that's what I want to be doing, not this"? Or was it quite
um
organic?
well, for starters, thank you. You're exceptionally kind, and it really means a huge amount to me. But I would say I didn't do comedy then after the New York thing. I didn't really start getting properly. I would say I started properly like doing comedy regularly, like on a sort of like, I'm going to go to open mics like once a week or maybe once every
Hmm.
couple of weeks, which is still not that regularly. But I started that in July 2018. So that's not that
God, that's
long.
recent. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I feel like that's when I start, and I had a 9-month-old. I think he was about 9 months. Yeah, about 9 months. Charlie was about 9 months, and I just started writing about my experiences of what I was going through, I guess, as a new mom, and also again, like it's like a loss of identity again on top of my own identity issues. But
Yeah.
like when you become a mum, you sort of it's like you've got all these ideas of what motherhood means that are put onto you by your society, really, and you're kind of trying to fulfill this role of like, you're like, because of course you're like really grateful to have this beautiful baby, and but then also your independence is just absolutely gone because you can't, you just can't live your life the way you did. Like your
Yeah.
life just radically changed. Like it's just it's just not possible to explain. Like it's one of those things that like you just have to experience parenthood to
Yeah. Yeah.
to know it. And I'm not saying like go become a parent to experience it. I just think if people don't want children, like definitely don't have them. um but but if you do want them, I also would be like absolutely have them, because it's the most amazing experience I've ever had. I think it's phenomenal, but I would say it's also the most challenging thing I've just could have ever imagined.
Mm.
So I think that sort of brought some new level of honesty to stand up, because I wanted time to be myself again. Like I got to stand up and people were like, "Oh, hi," or introducing me were like, "This is Tara," and it's like, "Oh, that's right. I'm Tara. I'm a person." Like it
Mm.
was that kind of a place for me to be myself. And I just started talking, a lot of actually, I hadn't thought about this, but because I wasn't because I was had a new baby, obviously I didn't really have time to write. So often I was just writing a small note in my phone, and then I would get up, I would like rehearse in the car on the way there, and then I would
Mm.
get up on stage and just sort of talk. And I think that's possibly
Oh my
why it was
God.
more honest, because it wasn't like written and rehearsed. It was very much
Yeah.
like it was just kind of me working out material, like essentially on the
Yeah.
stage.
I guess you didn't give yourself a chance to sort of censor yourself by just getting up and doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So it was very different. Whereas my stuff that I did in the very early stand up was all very much like written and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and was
Wow.
oh, and in terms of influences, obviously I'm very disappointed with his behavior, but I would say Louis CK is a massive influence in terms
Yeah.
of his work. I feel very sad. I was so
Yes.
gutted, I was so gutted
Yeah, of course.
when it came out about what he did. And I still feel sad that I just feel that he hasn't really,
No, it just it
dealt
doesn't
with it properly. Like,
yeah,
I,
it's
I
really
don't,
shameful.
yeah, I just don't feel that he's like, if he really owned what he'd done and like properly apologized and acknowledged it, I think there would be some place to even start a sort of dialogue
Yeah.
towards forgiveness. But he's kind of almost made it a joke, where he was sort of like, now everyone knows my thing, or whatever he said.
Mm.
And it's like, that's not a thing. Like yeah, as in
Yeah.
not asking or not getting proper consent to do that is not a thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, anyway, but in terms of his actual comedy, I still think it's some of the greatest stand up I've ever seen. And I
Mhm.
really love some of his material. I think some of it, like his Monopoly bit about playing Monopoly with his
Oh
kids.
God, yeah.
His
Yeah.
bit on like the Batman, when he has to call a man to come and sort the bat out in his place. There are just so many bits I just absolutely love.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then
Yeah.
also there's also other stuff where you just think, I feel like he was kind of telling everyone,
Yeah, like,
like
if
there are
only
other
there'd been a clue. Like the fact that about 8 times in an hour-long show he says, and then I just jerk off, and it's like, Oh,
And he says
hiding
he's
in
like,
plain sight.
yeah,
That's it.
he says how he's like had to take to the streets, and you're just like, oh, you were actually not joking. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, I definitely had a similar thing. I loved his obviously, as so many people did. Like, I used to listen to his albums on Spotify all the time. We even
yeah.
went to see him live, like when he came to the UK. We went and saw him at Wembley and stuff. So yeah, I felt like you, kind of, fuck, come on. But
Well, I actually did an open spot at Angel the night he showed up.
no
Um, and
way.
it was just before all the stuff came out about the wanking, sadly. But I was happy that I was there before it came out, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh my God, when it got to the end of the night and it was almost finished, and then the MC was like, "Oh, guys, we've had someone show up last minute, and he's a special guest," and he walks up on stage and he was like, "Hey guys, I'm Louis," and everyone just lost their minds. Like, I literally felt like
Fuck.
I was going to cry. It was just amazing. And actually, one of the things I loved about seeing him there was seeing him doing new material as well, because some of it was great, and then there were about two bits that absolutely bombed, and it was such a joy to realize that even people who are at the very, very top still write
Yeah.
stuff that doesn't work, and so, like, there is no shame in when you write something and it doesn't work. It is just a learning process. You have to just keep on going. Like, I think it's that thing where you can just, if you have a bad gig, you can be like, oh, I'm shit or whatever. But I
Yeah.
think when you see someone like that good, uh, still do things that don't work, even at that level of fame where he's got kind of already got most of the audience on his side.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I found that quite encouraging.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I will definitely think of that. And also, like, especially now, it's quite comforting to think of Louis C.K. bombing. It's like, good. I'm glad he had a difficult time. But yeah, it's really interesting. And obviously a really great influence, not obviously in terms of like personal attributes. He's a bit of a shit. But the style of comedy like is undeniably really attractive because he was very honest.
Yeah.
Well, honest in what we now know is obviously a self-serving way, but it felt very honest. And yeah, I definitely see. I think that is the kind of the attribute that, obviously, other than funny, I'm constantly floored by when I see you. And so I'm really excited about the obviously really challenging topics that you're talking about being attracted to writing at the moment, or that you're kind of thinking about a lot. I mean, have you got much of a plan, or is it just too difficult at the minute to make any kind of
I
plans?
mean, I've been thinking a lot about doing a show at Edinburgh. I don't, well, for starters, I don't know if Edinburgh will be happening next year.
Yeah.
But if it does go ahead next year, I don't know if I'd be looking to take an hour. I think I'd probably maybe look at doing like a split show, or just like a 40-minute show or something, but or a work in progress. Because I think I do have material. I definitely have a concept that I'm interested in. But it's just, I don't know. It's just that, you know, I was talking to a comic the other day. He's done really well for himself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's reasonably, he's not famous, but he's up there, I guess.
Yeah.
And he said to me that he thinks of really funny material that he could do about his mother, but he just wouldn't do it because he doesn't want to upset her. And
Yeah.
that's a difficulty, really, is like that thing of like, you know, uh some of our I think some of our best material is potentially about the people closest to us.
Yeah.
But then you risk, wrecking relationships, and then it becomes a thing of like, what's more important, trying to salvage a relationship that you might not have anyway. So in some ways, I guess that's the decision. It's that thing of being like, is this relationship worth saving if it doesn't really exist anyway? But then you're sort of hanging on to the thought that maybe it is salvageable.
Yeah.
Which is where
Yeah.
I think some people, I've heard some comics say that like they felt free for the first time, like with their comedy when their parents died, or when they got divorced, or like, and because they were finally able to say what they wanted to say but free from consequences, I guess. And
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
that's what I find
God,
really
it's
hard, is like just the thing of like basically just not wanting to hurt hurt the people around me.
yeah. It's such a I don't think it's something that we really talk about a lot in comedy, but yeah, certainly like some things just feel even if you're being honest, like some things still are too private to talk about because of all those factors of other people's feelings and wanting to respect privacy and that kind of thing. Like certainly I know I don't have anything on like my relationship and my marriage and stuff. And we've been together 16 years. Like my relationship is the biggest part of my life, but my wife is just quite a private person. And it's not like she's ever told me you're not allowed to write about it. But I also don't know how I would feel about saying stuff that maybe just feels private. So it feels like I kind of feel like everything's fair game with me because I volunteered to do this. And so
Mm.
I will happily say absolutely anything about myself so long as, it doesn't really affect or offend or upset or embarrass anybody else. But yeah, when you have to factor in other people's feelings, I think that is a huge thing that I don't think I've really heard many comedians talk about, but it is a massive thing. It's really interesting that you bring it up.
Yeah, it's just a really difficult one with like, for instance, if you've got stuff that happened in your childhood that really could be funny, potentially really funny or really relatable.
Hmm.
But then it's like, if I talk about that, I'm potentially going to really hurt people. So and that's, I always think that when I see certain comedians talk honestly about, you know, things with their parents or things with their siblings, or, sometimes I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, wow, that is the best bit of comedy I've seen in ages, because it's so honest and it's so like, yes, that is the truth. That is it.
Yeah.
But then you're also like, I don't know if I'd want to be related to this comedian, like,
Sure.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah. Whereas, but with my relationship, my husband, I do most of my material, or he hears most of my material. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't hear. No, he definitely hears my material, and he knows, I do put him in some of my jokes, and like, but I think a lot of the time I'm definitely the butt of my own jokes. Like, for instance, when the other day I did a joke about how, like, he ate 3 massive bowls of pasta, and then he's in bed,
Yeah.
clutching his stomach, being like, oh, I think I have a gluten intolerance. And I'm making out like he's a really annoying person. But then I'm also making fun of myself for, like, when I sort of said the thing about like, maybe I'm repulsed by weakness, or like I have a lack of empathy. And, like, I think it's not just me. I don't think it's just me making fun of him. I think it's also an
No, no,
acknowledgement that
definitely not.
I have some issues that I have to that I have to look at.
It's really funny. A couple of things like spring to mind when we're talking about this area, I guess. I guess these are sort of recommendations, and if anybody's listening to this and wants to watch more comedians who kind of touch in some of these areas, definitely two that I think of are big American comedians you probably know. John Mulaney being like one of the best comedians in the world. has a great bit where he talks about his wife, and he's always talked about his relationship quite a lot. And his wife says, like, I don't mind you talking about me on stage, but just don't call me a bitch. And Mulaney's like, how would that bit even go? Like, my wife's a bitch and I hate her. Like, that's not funny. It's ridiculous. But the other comedian who talks, and actually, now that I think about it, I see like some similarities. And one of the reasons why he's like one of my absolute favorite comedians ever is Mike Birbiglia. I don't know if you know Mike Birbiglia.
No, I don't think so.
He's an American comedian. He's a real storyteller. He is like super, super honest about stuff. And like he talks like you do about some quite big things. Like he talks about like some near death experiences and stuff he's had, and about some like really difficult relationships. He has a great show about parenthood and becoming a father as well. I think you would really love him. So everyone listening to this, but especially Tara, you should see Mike Birbiglia. He's got stuff on Netflix.
I have seen him. Yeah. I just realized who he is. Yeah, I really enjoyed the show, actually. Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I think if I were being really aspirational, like I would want to talk about stuff that's really important to me in the same way you do, and in the same way that like Mike Birbiglia does, and kind of create that sort of atmosphere in the room, which is super honest, super funny. It's the dream ticket. I think you're onto a winner, Tara.
Oh, thank you, Connor. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I constantly go as I work as I work through things like in therapy and stuff. I often get this thing of like, maybe I shouldn't do comedy anymore. Maybe I should just become like a therapist, or maybe I should just work to help people. And like, maybe I should, like maybe comedy is just an endless need to seek validation again and again. So maybe I actually shouldn't be doing it. So we'll see. But then, I also think it's such a safe space for me. Like comedy, it's provided such relief in my life. It's helped me in loads of moments, and I don't think it is just a superficial thing. I don't think it is meaningless. I think it does have meaning. It's provided a huge amount of comfort for me, and I think so I don't want to look at it as being something that's just kind of like, that that is like just endlessly validation seeking, because actually I think if we can produce content that means something to us, and if it means something to one other person, then I'll be thrilled.
100%. Yeah, I really do think, particularly when comics like you don't shy away from talking about things that might be difficult, and sometimes like it's just really good to hear someone else's. Another comedian that I think their stuff is like really important is someone like Chelsea Birkby. Like Chelsea talks about mental health on stage in a way that like floors me. I mean, it's so fucking funny, but also there will be people in the audience who are going through their own mental health things, or will have someone in their life who's going through something similar. And hearing someone like Chelsea talking so openly, so honestly, in such a funny way, like maybe comedians, we are perhaps a little guilty sometimes of thinking that what we're doing is life-changing or whatever. But I really do maintain that, like comedy on big things talked about in the right way, super, super interesting. And I definitely think of you when I say that kind of thing.
Thank you, Connor. Well, it's really funny. Actually, now that you've just mentioned Chelsea, I remember the first time I saw Chelsea perform, and I remember being like, "Oh my god!" Like, I've never seen anyone sort of speak like that, and it really, about mental health, and it really actually helped me, because I think at the time I hadn't started, I hadn't even thought about having therapy at that stage of my life. I wasn't really even aware of how badly I needed it. But I think that seeing her perform helped somehow end some kind of stigma around it for me, because actually so much of my upbringing was very much about very negative about psychology, and very much, there was a huge amount of stigma around it, and very much the thought process that it was, of mammon. If that means anything to anybody, it is not of Christ. So keep that in mind, listeners. Yeah, it was one of those things where seeing her speak about it actually really helped me. And it's nice. I've got to tell Chelsea that, actually, because
Oh yeah, you really
I think
should.
that was in some ways part of helping me to maybe even start thinking about having it. So it just shows that actually, people can really change things through talking about things on stage.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think when you talk about motherhood and parenthood in such an honest way on stage, it's so funny. It's it's helpful in a million different levels. Like, someone's going out, it might be their first time out, since they've had their kids, or it might just be a rare night out, and it means a lot to them to go out and laugh, hear someone talking about something that they can relate to. But also, yeah, there'll inevitably be something in a joke or something that you say to contextualize a joke that will make someone think, thank Christ it's not just me who thinks that or feels that, or that's happened to. Yeah, I definitely think, I don't know, whatever thoughts you've had about not doing stand-up, I need to say everything possible to make sure you keep doing stand-up, because you'd be too big a loss to stand up if you stop doing it.
Oh, thank you, Connor. Well, I will keep that in mind. I'm going to keep this recording, play it to myself.
Well, funny that you mention recordings, because I think it's a prime opportunity for us to play a little clip of you performing live at Jericho Comedy. So listener, grab yourself a drink. Imagine you're back down in the cozy Jericho Cafe basement. Close your eyes and relive a brilliant set recorded live at Jericho Comedy from Tara Newton-Wordsworth. Here she is.
I've got a 6-week-old baby at home. He is mine. I didn't just take him this time. I've stopped doing that. So, I also have an 18-month-old. Gosh, that's close together. Was that planned? Yes, it was. Thank you for asking. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I was a very nice pregnant person. I found that, people come up to you when you're pregnant and say things like, enjoy sleep while you can, because you won't be getting any once that baby comes along. To which I'd say, enjoy sleep while you can, before your cat eats your face off and no one finds you for 3 weeks. Because no one likes you, Graham. I had a lot of fear coming up during my first pregnancy about what the birth would be like, whether I'd be a good mother, whether I'd ever be able to sneeze again without a little bit of wee coming out. Also, would it change the dynamic between me and my Tamagotchi? The sonographer at the 20-week scan had clearly been trained to say sort of empathetic phrases, but she just didn't quite have the emotional capacity to back them up. She was just like, okay, so many congratulations to you. It's a very exciting time. I'm going to put a little bit gel. It's a bit cold, but not nearly as cold as the winters of my childhood. As you can see here, got 1 kidney, got 2 kidneys. Some babies have 1, yours has 2. 2 is also fine. I was just like, on the graph it looks like our baby's quite big. Is it bigger than average? She was like, well, I didn't want to scare you, but yes. It's a really big baby. But no need to worry, because when he's coming out, he gets, how you say, wedged. Midwife can just make small cut, come straight through, no problem. So that was a relief. Quite the weight off my mind. He was 9 pounds 8 ounces. So a lot of the women in here going like, Yeah, it's pretty big, and there was no time for any cutting. He just tore straight through there, taking out everything in his path. And, sometimes when I'm walking now, I find my legs just kind of walk off in different directions. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, having a newborn, if you're thinking about having one, just so you know, they are pretty selfish. It's just all about them and their needs. They hardly ever ask you how your day's going. They also are surprisingly unattractive. Like, sort of when you see it, you're like, gosh, I don't remember having an affair with Winston Churchill. Or a beetroot. So, yeah, and then, like, after a few days, like, a layer of skin starts peeling off, and you're like, oh, is this a snake baby? And then they get all these spots, and it's got acne, and it's funny, because then when you have friends come over who, they don't have children, they don't know it's normal, you hand them the baby, and you can see it in their eyes, that they're like, oh, nice baby. Is it normal? Look like that. And I love to mess with people and just be like, what do you mean? It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Our baby is perfect. And they're like, no, yeah, it's perfect. It's beautiful. And I'm like, good, because I just put it on babymodels.com. And they're like, that's a good decision. Definitely. Yeah, I think it's nice now because he's just started smiling, and it's quite a thankless first few weeks. It sort of feels like you're trying to get in with the cool group at school. Like you're just being like, hello, oh yeah, and all you're getting back is just like. I don't know why I wasn't popular at school. No idea. So that's lovely. People say it's really hard having a newborn, but actually I think toddlers are way harder. Like our 18-month-old, I just find myself all day, I'm just saying no, no, you can't climb over the balcony. No, don't throw knives at your brother. No, do not lick that toilet brush. It's hard parenting. And anyway, yesterday we were at dinner and he just starts throwing his food on the floor, and I was like, do not throw your food on the floor. And he did it again. I was like, look, I told you no more, okay? And then he locks eyes with me, and he's like, I was like, don't do it. Do not do it. He's just like, honestly, and obviously, I think it's terrible that people beat their children. But at the same time, I totally get why people beat their children. Yeah, I'm not beating him. No. Yeah.
Tara, this is the part of the podcast where any goodwill I've built up beforehand just gets thrown out. What follows is the kind of harsh, uncomfortable experience that listeners have come to expect from the pressure cooker that is pressing questions. All I need from you here are some truthful answers to some very serious questions. Can you do that for us?
I think so.
Fantastic. Tara, do you like gardening?
Yes.
Ooh. How much do you like gardening?
I like it in that kind of way of I like planting things, but sometimes I get angry if the plant doesn't go the way I was hoping it would. But mostly I'd say I've got a lot of house plants. I've got a little balcony of plants, and mostly I would say I like them. I'm not an allotmenter. We have an allotment. I haven't got into that. I find it overwhelming. I think it's too big, but I can handle the small stuff.
So on a scale, if 1 is I never want to see a plant again in my life, and 10 is I would be a farmer if I could be, what if we're attaching a number to this? Where do you think you are in the gardening scale?
I'd say I'm a 6 because I definitely love plants. I love having them around. I love, like, I think they make a huge difference in the home. It's
Absolutely.
just like to my mood.
What kind of plants have you got going on at the moment?
Got a cheese plant. You got to get one. They're they're really in fashion at the moment. Don't know if you know, but they're everywhere.
A cheese plant?
Yeah, that's what they're called, right? Cheese plant, Swiss cheese plant, I think, or maybe something like that.
What on earth is this? This isn't a plant. No, hold on. I'm not going to finish that question because I know how cheese is made. Tara, explain what is happening with this plant.
As in, because it looks like it's got big leaves and they start forming like holes in them as they get bigger, and they're really like sort of in vogue at the moment.
Is this just because everybody's bad at keeping houseplants and like this is the reassuring thing that the ones we love tell us? Like, no, it's supposed to look like that. It's a cheese plant.
You got to get one. I'm going to order you one. They are fantastic. They're so lovely. And I think they were really huge in I think it was the 70s. And then they've been out for ages. They're back in. They've come back with a vengeance. So we've got one of them. I've got a hanging fern. I've got, on the windowsill, I've got a rose. I've got a bonsai. I've got a lily. I've got a, peace lily. I've got a lovely hanging plant going down the wall, but I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, I've got lots of plants and they bring me a lot of joy.
Oh, this sounds wonderful. It sounds like you really, even if you don't like gardening, you sure like plants.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Extraordinary.
I never would like to have, because I grew up on a farm, I'm definitely would never want to farm. They're way too much work, way too much responsibility.
Yeah.
My husband was all like, let's have a farm. I was like, no, thank you. We are not having a farm ever. As though we have the money to have a farm. I love the way I'm like, let's have a farm. My husband's like, let's just buy a farm. Like, obviously, we're not just buying a farm. But even if we had the money, I would be like, I'm not buying a farm ever.
I think
because you get a bunch of cows, and the next thing you can't go anywhere, because how do you go anywhere when the cows need, they need a milking, they need preg testing. I've done far too much preg testing in my time. I'm never going there again. I can't deal with it.
That is, I think your balcony and a few plants on the windowsill sounds like a perfect compromise. That sounds ideal. Tara, big question here. Starter and main or main and dessert?
Oh, main and dessert every time. It's not even a question. Not even a question.
Do you have that is absolute certainty. Even if you're listening and don't agree, you got to respect that conviction. What's your choice? It sounds like you're, if main and main or dessert and dessert was an option, what would you, if you had to choose one course over another? What's the hierarchy, I guess? So we've got starter and third.
I would say dessert definitely most important for me. I would say probably. That's now, so I'm having less and less conviction as I go on. I would say sticky toffee pudding or sticky date pudding. With some vanilla ice cream. It's important to have lots of sauce though. Cannot stand when they're stingy with the sauce. It really annoys me because I don't want to just be eating the pudding that's like dry. I want plenty of the sauce in there. You got to have the perfect bite with equal amounts of ice cream, toffee sauce, and then the pudding. And then for my mains, I'd be at a different restaurant, I would say. If I get to have all the courses, I would go to a Thai restaurant. I'd have tom yum soup because I love the sweet and sour soup. And then I'd have, for my mains, I'd probably have green chicken curry. But then the sticky toffee pudding does not fit in there at all. So if I was just going for a pub dinner, I'd just go burger and chips for my main, and then I'd go sticky toffee pudding for dessert.
Oh my god, that is very difficult to disagree with, and it's absolute torture because I haven't had my dinner yet. So
I'm so sorry.
I am just here salivating at that description. Tara, what is the first book you remember loving as a child?
Oh my God, I was about to say The English Patient, but that's the most depressing thing I've ever heard in my life. What kind of childhood is that?
Shit.
I mean, Jesus. No, okay, I must have a book. I liked Where the Wild Things Are, but that's also a bit scary, so maybe not that. Trying to think of a happy book that I liked as a child. Oh, I loved Goosebumps. That's also not happy.
Oh, yeah, but they were super fun.
Yeah, and I had a little torch on my Goosebumps book. So I would be able to just like turn the lights off and be in darkness with my tiny little Goosebumps torch attached to my book and just read these horrific stories.
You're braver than I would have been. I'm such a wimp.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I just really loved them. I don't know why. I mean, that's maybe a bit weird, but I loved sort of ghost stories and stuff.
Everyone of our generation freaking loved Goosebumps. They were awesome books.
They were so good.
Those and Choose Your Own Adventure books were like the ones that there was such demand for at the school library. And it'd be really infuriating if there weren't any left.
Yeah, and the other one that was, I remember being demanding at the school library was that Post book. Do you remember the Postman book? And it had the letters in it, and you got to take the letters. Yeah, and you got to take the letters out and stuff. That was always out at the library.
I mean, he was a terrible postman if we can just read all the letters that were in his bag. But I have nothing but respect for the format. It's great fun.
Really fun. But I'd say Goosebumps. Although my brother and sister, years later said that I'd really disturbed them because when they had like birthday parties, they'd be like, tell us a ghost story. And they were much younger than me. Like my sister's 8 years younger. So I'd have all these like tiny little girls who were like, I don't know, probably 6 or 7. And we would we had a teepee at the time, and we would sit around this fire, and I'd like tell these like really intense ghost stories. And then they'd be like up all night and like traumatized. So I'm sorry about that.
That's
but
what any good sister should do. I mean, really.
I feel that that's what they asked me to do it. Like they asked for it. That's what I'm saying.
It would have been unkind not to traumatize your sister.
Exactly. If you want, you want a ghost story, you want a proper ghost story. You want to be a bit scared.
Exactly. I'm on your side with this. Don't beat yourself up about
Connor.
that. Tara, have you ever made a New Year's resolution that you've actually kept?
I mean, yes, actually. This is going to sound super nerdy, but I listened to this Tony Robbins New Year's video.
Amazing.
This is the personal growth side of me. And yeah, this was years ago, and it was all about progress, and that if you want progress, you have to form daily rituals that you do every day to kind of get you to where you want to be. And so part of my New Year's resolution was like essentially writing down what I actually wanted at the time and working towards doing those things by taking these daily rituals. And what I wanted to do at the time was direct news review at Edinburgh Festival, and I did end up doing that. So I was
That is very cool. That is a great resolution to keep.
Yeah,
Also, a brilliant one to set yourself. That's super cool.
Yeah, I really loved that. Was such a privilege to direct that at the Pleasance in Edinburgh. I mean, it was just the best, like such an amazing experience, because I love Edinburgh so much, and I loved being at the Pleasance, and it was just an absolute joy. So that was one of those really funny things where, I don't know, I think there's huge power in kind of working out what you want, and obviously I don't do it all the time, and I need to kind of work on it more or whatever. But I
think allow yourself to enjoy the fact that you did one. Like, that's one more than like 99% of people listening, I bet. So well done you.
Thanks,
Tara,
Connor.
this episode is being released on Thanksgiving in Canada. What's your message for any Canadian listeners today?
Be happy, be joyful, be thankful, most importantly. And, you're a beautiful person. You're a good person You deserve great things in your life, and you're loved.
Oh my God, that was so much more genuinely lovely than I was anticipating. I would have been like, don't eat too much pie. And you just say something that is just beautiful. Oh my God. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Tara, what's the most unusual ingredient you've ever used in cooking?
It's a tough one. Recently, I've been putting sumac in my dressings. I don't even know what that is.
Sumac?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't really know what it means, but it does taste good. In terms of what I would like to... The thing I was going to cook it, was like beef. You know the beef... Oh, God, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. It doesn't matter. It's beef, it's like a beef stew, but it's made with like the weird bits of bone and like sort of fatty bits around it, like jelly bits.
Oh, yeah, like the kind of marrow in the bone and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I just got, I don't know, I was going to do it, and then I just got a bit grossed out, and I just didn't go through with it. So doesn't really count because I didn't actually do it. So...
But hey, you've introduced me to sumac, whatever that is.
It's really nice. I've been putting it in this dressing with basically just fresh lemon, bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, some crushed garlic, and then about half a teaspoon of sumac. Really, really nice. Really recommend it.
I am absolutely going to have to check out some sumac. Tara, can you name for me 5 Batman villains?
The Joker, Poison Ivy, Penguin, Two-Face.
Yes.
Shiver me timbers.
Oh, you're so close. You can do this.
I'm really close. Jeez. Wait. I don't think I got any more. I really don't. I'm not really a Batman fan.
Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway.
Catwoman?
Yeah! You got
she a bad
5. Oh, wow. If you want to get into a deep and meaningful discussion about whether Catwoman is a true villain or an anti-hero, I'm here for it all day, but I fear that that's a separate podcast. So join me in the next episode of Catwoman, the Truth.
Because I was gonna say Catwoman, but then I thought, oh no, I don't think she's a villain. But
in
anyway,
fairness, actually, in recent years, she has been more of a heroic figure. But in classic Batman terms of heroes and villains, I think Catwoman we can count as either a hero or a villain. I will accept.
I mean,
both
she
answers.
wasn't a villain in the Halle Berry movie, but then again, maybe the whole movie was villainy of
that was it.
Making.
Yeah, the film was the villain.
Yeah. Ah, dear.
Tara,
Sorry,
serious
Halle.
question here. How many feathers are on the average chicken?
I mean, I've plucked many, so I should know. I'm gonna say 2,500. No, sorry, I'm gonna cut that right back. I'm gonna say 850.
If you multiplied your original answer by 3, you still wouldn't even have it.
What?
The average chicken has apparently 8,000 feathers.
Wow, man. That's crazy.
Truly remarkable amount of feathers.
But then again, when we were plucking them, like, because you put them in boiling water, sorry for any vegans listening, but like, and then they would all kind of come out in clumps, so you don't really get that sense of how many individual feathers there are. So that, I can believe it. And
I'm assuming a lot of them are like super tiny little feathers as well.
Really small. Yeah.
So well, apparently the good people at QI would have me believe that the average chicken has 8,000 feathers. Extraordinary stuff.
Unbelievable. That's crazy.
Tara, my final question for you is, Why are cranberries not eaten as much from January through to November as they are in December? What's your hot take on this? Where do the cranberries go?
I mean,
for the
I
other
think
11 months?
urinary tract infections are definitely up in December, so that is why all the December eating happens, I'm assuming.
That is as good a theory as any. People used to just have ketchup with their turkey, but no, 2 birds with 1 stone. If it hurts to pee, have some cranberry sauce. Well, there we go. That's a great answer.
What's the real reason? You got to give me the real reason.
Oh, I don't have an answer to that.
You don't have an answer?
Sometimes I'm just curious.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I just want to know what people think about stuff.
I mean, I find that very frustrating. I'm going to have to Google that after this podcast.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's like kind of when someone sings like every note of a song except the last one, and then they just walk away, and it's like, no, don't do that. Leaves an itch in your brain. Well, we have got a little message to play now from our lovely friends at our brilliant charity partner, Oxfordshire Mind. Have a little listen to this.
Are you caring for someone and struggling to cope?
Suffering with low mood or feeling anxious?
Experiencing discrimination and not sure of your options?
You are not alone. Did you know that you can ask to speak to an Oxfordshire Mind Wellbeing worker through your local GP practice? A wellbeing worker can help you to identify what is important to you, offer time, space and support for you to work out the positive changes you want to make, and support you to reach those goals. Tell you about relevant services you can access to improve your wellbeing and support you with making referrals. Our service is currently available over the phone to anyone registered with a participating GP practice in the City and South West Oxfordshire. For more information, please ask at your GP practice or call the Oxfordshire Mind Information Line on 01865 247 788.
I don't know if you've noticed, listener, but the world isn't in a great state. Big, bigoted blonde morons in London and Washington, beloved children's authors revealing themselves to be hateful assholes, an airborne plague, and I got a bag of sweet potatoes in the supermarket this week, but when I got home, one of them was really mouldy, so I had to throw it out and really scrub the others to get all the ickiness off them. So things aren't great all round, but let's take a moment to imagine a world in which our guest this week, Tara Newton-Wordsworth, is in charge of everything. How much better would the state of the world be? Well, let's find out. Tara, I want to hear what you would do differently if you ruled the world in a game imaginatively titled If I Ruled the World. Does that sound good to you?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so Tara, you're in charge. What's the first universal law you're bringing in?
Okay, so this isn't so much a law as it is an invention,
I love it.
which is basically a time freezer for parents. So in those moments where you feel you're going to completely lose your mind, you can pause time and just go make yourself a cup of tea, lie down, read a magazine, have a little nap, stare into space. You know, like I just feel like it would make such a massive difference to parents all over the world. Also, it'd be nice if you could kind of like almost store that frozen time in a cloud. So in the future, when, you know, they're teenagers and they don't want anything to do with you, you can go back to that frozen moment where you absolutely hated your toddler and look at them and be like, God, I love them so much. Aren't they amazing? I wish they were still toddlers and not teenagers that hate me.
That is an extraordinary invention. I am well on board with this. I mean, you're in charge of the world, so you can just get all the geeks to like drop whatever research they're doing. Because there are some PhDs that just don't need to be done right now. And get them to focus all their efforts on stopping time.
Absolutely.
Can you think of any like negative uses of this? What if the terrorists got a hold of our time stoppers?
I mean, look, I think there's probably an abundance of things that could go wrong. I'm not saying I've worked it all out. It's kind of like About Time, the film. You just enjoy it for what it is. You don't look at the logic. You can't look at the logic, otherwise it wrecks the film, okay? It's a beautiful movie.
You're absolutely right. It was wrong of me to even point out the tiniest potential flaw in what is and sounds like an absolutely brilliant thing.
I mean, I think one of the massive flaws would be that some parents would freeze time and then just never go back. They just walk away, as in like they'd just be like, you know what, I'm really enjoying this break. This break is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and turns out I don't really like being a parent anymore. I feel like that's a massive problem with this scenario. But for the majority of people who just need 10 minutes to just do a bit of meditation, listen to their Calm app or whatever.
Maybe that's how you fix any potential flaws. You can only stop time for 10 minutes.
Yes, that's perfect.
So it just buys you 10 minutes where you can just center yourself and then go back to things.
Because that's all you need. It's just in those moments where it's like so much screaming and just you don't feel that you've got any time for yourself. Just 10 minutes to just finish a cup of coffee for the first time ever. Like that would be bliss.
I love it. I think we should be setting all the geeks to getting going with this right now. Geeks, if you're listening, start inventing this machine. All right, Tara, what is your second idea to make the world a better place?
Okay, my second idea, I'm pretty sure I did actually have this exact same idea with you the last time, maybe on the radio, BBC Radio Oxford.
God,
However,
that was like 500 years ago.
Yeah, back before end times. I feel that it's worthy of coming back. It's basically a water slide commute. I just feel commuting, it would just be so much more fun if we could get everywhere by water slide,
Oh, I am so on board with this. Yes.
I mean, my husband hates water slides. I don't understand it. I don't know how any person could hate water slides. I don't know what's happened to him in his childhood.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know. I mean, I went water sliding with his mum, so I know it wasn't her. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Extraordinary.
But
my word.
But regardless, I think the only thing that I can foresee going wrong with that is that if you've got a long commute, like by the time you get there, you're probably going to be quite wrinkly. That's the only issue.
That's a mild hiccup. But you know what? Like, that's the fun part of having a bath or anything. Like when your fingers go all wrinkly and you pretend to be super old. I think that would cheer people up in the office if you come in like, oh, look, I'm 90. That would never get boring.
Yeah, and then 90-year-olds are like, that's actually really offensive. Like, I don't look like that.
How wrinkly do 90-year-olds get in the bath? If you're 90 years old or thereabouts and listen to the Jericho Comedy Podcast, do email us in. Tell us how wrinkly you get, if that's not offensive.
Yeah, or send photos, please.
We will not post them online. We take GDPR very seriously.
We'll post them, but we'll make people pay.
Everyone's got to make it back during lockdown. It's not a bad idea. I love that as an idea. I mean, are people having to put on wetsuits to kind of get to work, or?
I mean, I guess you probably want to wear some form of bathing attire. Sure. Obviously to protect certain parts of your body, particularly if you're a female. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Then there's the whole thing of like, how do you carry your day wear? Like, do we have to invent waterproof backpacks? That's a whole other thing. But I guess
let's leave that to the geeks. Once they've sorted out the time-stopping device,
yes,
then they can work on the elaborate system of water slides.
Exactly.
But no bad ideas in brainstorming. And this is a cracking idea.
Thank you.
Tara, what is your final idea to improve the world?
My final idea is, I would say, the most important.
Okay.
Very, very dear to my heart. It's something I've thought a lot about. It's calorie-free chocolate.
Fuck yeah.
I just feel, I love chocolate so much, and I would just love to be able to eat as much as I can, to the point of when I feel like I hate myself, but without hating myself. That would be such a beautiful just be beautiful, really.
And it's not like you're asking for too much. You're not asking for chocolate that burns calories. You just don't want it to count toward your caloric intake. And I think that is more than reasonable.
Exactly, because like when I get to the end of the day and I've really eaten all the calories I need for my body to sort of sustain a healthy kind of weight, and you know, I've had my adequate nutrition and everything, and all my little apps and things are being like, you actually don't need to eat anything else, Tara. I can just be like, well, you know what? I'm going to eat a bunch of this calorie-free chocolate because I can. So, fuck you, apps, because you don't know shit about me.
That's such a detailed dialogue with the apps. I feel like you've had this conversation before.
Yeah, my fitness pal can go fuck itself. Sorry, I'm getting very...
No, you're
very
absolutely
aggressive.
right. I'm 100% on board. I was using my fitness pal a lot before my wedding last year.
Oh, really? Were you,
Yeah.
did you, was it like, did you have like a goal weight in mind, or what were you doing? Was that why?
No, it was more just as much as possible, as soon as possible kind of thing. Like, I got my suit for the wedding quite late on, and the only one that I really loved that I could really afford was like one size too small for me. And so I just started this like, but that, and like dieting, well, it's not dieting, but just kind of watching what I'm eating a lot and like going out, you know, doing all the normal stuff that everybody does that I'm not necessarily complaining about. But I did find like little hack things, like little treats seemed to count for so much more when I was kind of depriving myself of them. Like, and there are these like little pots of 10-calorie jelly that you can get. And they were such a fun... I mean, jelly's a fun snack at the best of times. But when it's only 10 calories, I could have like 2 tubs of jelly. And I was like, ooh, I'm so bad. And it was only like 20 calories.
Wow.
And then like 0 calorie or like, you know, 2 calorie for 500 mils of like, you know, lemonade and stuff. So all these little cheat things that I'd sit down and I'd have like a big glass of lemonade and a little thing of jelly. And I was like, oh, I am so bad today. Like, my hips are not going to thank me for this tomorrow. But in total, it was like 21 calories. They were fun times.
That sounds so naughty. My treat for myself is normally options Belgian hot chocolate. And I think it's like 40 calories or something, and it's just really, really nice. You feel like you're having some kind of treat. I did manage to lose quite a lot of weight during lockdown. I was super happy. I was like really I was doing my dance cardio. I was really like eating so well. I have put on a bit of weight since lockdowns. I think it's because I was in such a regime-y sort of mindset, which was great. When you're like not allowed to see anyone, it's a lot easier. But then once it ended, and the 50% government scheme with the 50% off the food and stuff, I was like going out for like I was just going out and eating so much 50% off food. In fact, my children now, every time we go past a cafe, they're like, cafe. In fact, I picked up Charlie from nursery today, and he was like, let's go coffee number 1.
That is excellent.
It's just because of that 50% scheme. Like I don't know, I'm obsessed with getting, I don't know, I love a bargain, and unfortunately I made too much of that scheme. And now I'm very sad that it's ended, because my children still expect the same amount of outings, but with full price
oh my God.
Food.
Who'd have thought that your poor children, that's as good as life is ever going to get? Like 50% off when they're 3. They don't know they're living. They have to wait for their student cards to come through before they get any kind of discounts like that again.
It was good. Although coffee number 1, just if you're listening, they do now have a 50% off scheme from Sunday to Thursday if you have the app, which I do have. So we are back there regularly.
Oh my goodness. That is a path to ruin.
This is not sponsored.
For coffee addicts. No, we did not take a single penny. Although, if coffee number 1 are listening to this and want to pay us for this spot, go for it. We won't say no to some cash. Well, there we go. So, Tara, your 3 things, these all involve like scientists and geeks needing to put down some kind of detailed infrastructure. So you mentioned the chocolate is the most important. If you're ranking these 3 things, You've got the water slide system to work, the time stopping, and the calorie-free chocolate. What's the scientists' to-do list looking like? Number one?
I mean, I think honestly, if I could choose any of them, I'd choose the time stopping, but I just think that's the least likely to actually be able to be possible. Whereas I think the most likely to be possible is the calorie-free chocolate.
Yeah.
The thing that is going to be difficult though is making it taste properly. Well, taste like proper chocolate. I cannot do any of the no fat stuff. Can't stand it. Like no fat yogurt, no fat. It just tastes absolutely synthetic and rubbish to me. So I would far rather eat a full fat Greek yogurt or whatever and enjoy it than have some kind of low fat rubbish. So if they can manage to get that full fat taste, that'll be amazing.
That sounds extremely important. Even if you don't take over the world, which by the way, you got my vote. I think you should be with your priority list the way it is. You're finally a politician who's speaking for people like me. But yeah, if scientists are listening, come on guys, get a grip and make some 0-calorie chocolate. Tara, thank you so much for sharing your vision of a better world. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat on the Jericho Comedy Podcast this evening. It's been so enjoyable chatting to you.
It's been a joy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. If our lovely listeners want to check out more of your work or stay across any gigs that you are doing that are coming up, how can they do that?
I have a website, which is taranewtonwordsworth.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram is TaraNW, and I'm also on YouTube. I think that's just TaraNW. And I'm not very good with posting, sketches and things, but I am about to start, and I have sort of created a TikTok account. So I'm gonna try and attempt to. I feel like I'm very late to the TikTok game. If I'm honest, I feel that people are really there already, and it's possibly too late to jump on there. But I feel like, just for fun, I'll upload a few sketches.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we will add links to your website and your Twitter and that kind of thing. And hey, if you get that TikTok set up before the episode's released, do let us know. We'll add a little link into the episode description. But for now, we cannot wait to have you back at Jericho Comedy again sometime very soon. We've loved gigging with you over the summer, and we want to see more of you on stage because you're always just such a great act to have on. So Tara, thank you so much, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you, Connor. Always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go. That was the brilliant Tara Newton-Wordsworth. I found that conversation absolutely fascinating. I hope you did too. Make sure you follow Tara on Twitter and check out her website for more of her really cool work. We'll add links to those into the episode description for you, so there's no excuse not to check those pages out. We've got some really great shows coming up over the next few weeks. We'll be back at the beautiful North Wall in Oxford on October 17th and 24th, and we've got stand-up shows at Cheney School in Headington on Halloween and throughout November. There are also some fantastic Jericho Comedy improv shows coming to the Oxford Playhouse later in the autumn, so check out the Jericho Comedy Twitter account to stay across all the cool stuff that we're doing. If you've enjoyed the podcast, you can let us know by donating a few pounds to Oxford Your Mind using our fundraising page. Again, a link to that is in the episode description. We've raised over £70,000 for their vital work in the last few years, and you can nudge us ever closer to that juicy 100,000 target. Check back next week when I'll be chatting to another brilliant Jericho Comedy performer, but until then, thank you so much for listening and bye-bye.